Well, good morning, everyone. Just a moment here. We'll get the screen share going on. Okay. Welcome back to our trading room. Yesterday, of course, the Martin Luther King holiday, so a very short trading day yesterday. It's never really worth trading those half days. The market will just tend to be very, very sideways on very, very light volume, which if we take a look at what was going on yesterday, you'll see that's exactly the case. The market opening right about here and not doing anything. The overnight, however, the market really putting in a decent rally. So we've got a little bit of a gap here to the upside this morning with a definite bullish bias on the day so far. We'll see how that plays out. Still a little bit early, of course. For those of you who like to take that first in sync eagle signal of the day, well, you've got that one right here, right on the opening bell. Or actually, maybe this one here, right on the opening bell. So the eagle definitely long. Trade forecasters say we are in trend mode. Looks like for about 3 hours, a little better than. I'm not so sure. I think maybe yesterday's session kind of skewing the figures a little bit there. But we'll have to give them a few minutes. We are getting a couple of signals here. Possible early counter trend here in the Raptor. We've produced a number 2 signal, but you're going to find that the number 2 signals that have the better chance of success are going to be those that follow a number 3 signal. So now we're actually producing a couple of number 3 signals with trend signals. And of course, there's nothing wrong with going with trend here. Oops, I was just about to show you that you could set up to take it above the high because the signal is printing so close to the high. You could just enter on a breakout above the high. It's still really early though. We're only, looks like about 5 minutes into the day. Possible late filter entry here now on the Falcon. And the next signal that develops on the Hawk, the next buy signal, will be our first micro macro cross signal. All right, so here now the Falcon signal. Now this is just a continuation signal of the trend. It is a late filter entry signal. I wouldn't want to go in too heavy here because it's still really early in the day. We are coming off of a long weekend. And the markets tend to be a little bit unpredictable those first few minutes of trading. So it's probably going to head higher. We're in sync across the board. Our eagle long here now, the first micro macro cross signal on the hawk. So we should see at least enough for a scalp follow through, and then of course the raptor, of course, also in sync with some buy signals there. All right, we're getting a little bit of follow through. Come on, get up there. All right, we're almost to the break even. Yeah, it looks like they're hesitating a little bit. I'm going to take the trade to break even manually just because I'm a chicken. There we go. We hit the break even target. And with a little bit more, we should get up to that profit target as well. Hooray for us. Now, this actually does have the potential to run out a little bit. As I said, the trade forecaster says we're in trend mode for better than 3 hours. Just checking this first in sync eagle signal of the day. Oh, it too has found its profit objective. If you have the nerve, that tends to be a pretty decent signal. So what we're looking at on your Eagle Trend Trader is the first in sync signal of the day. Now, this isn't unique to the Eagle, but it seems to work really well on the Eagle. You can do it really on any of the tools. You can do it on the Falcon, you can do it on the Raptor. And what you're looking for is the in sync signal. So the with trend signal, not the counter trend signal. So here the Raptor actually on the opening bell producing a with trend signal, a couple back-to-back with trend signals. And you can see they have very nice follow through. It's the same signal here on the Eagle. If I go back a couple of days, well, we'll ignore yesterday, but you'll see, and this is something you can do on your own, but you'll see that the first signal that prints with trend, so the market opening about here, and your first with trend signal, that one didn't engage this one right here. Normally it happens quickly, but you'll see this one, you have to wait almost a half an hour before you had your first in sync signal. And then the day before, see, these are counter trend signals. I guess it would have been this one right here. You may have been stopped if you placed your stops right here. This is why I say ideally we want to keep our stops 2 swings back. Now, some of you may look at this and say, well, that's swing 1 and that's swing 2. Well, technically, I suppose you're right. However, when they're this close together, you really should consider it the same price level. What you're looking at is you want to be 2 price levels back. That might be a better way to look at it. So this would be swing 1. That's actually swing 2 back there. So depending how you managed your stop, you may or may not have been stopped out here, or you know what, the trade actually did rally a little bit. You probably had some opportunity for at least a little bit of profit, or at least a break-even trade. The day before that, and I'm not going to waste too much time doing this, but just to show you the market opens. These are, oh, I guess this is your first in-sync signal. So here's a signal. In-sync did not work out. So it works very well most of the time. That seems to be true for almost all things trading related. It works until it don't. Well, they're trickling higher. Like I said early on, like that, sometimes you want to take the chance and try to hold out for more. Because if it's going to go, that's usually the time it's going to do it. Might be on hold here for a little bit until we get a follow-up signal of sorts. The hawk, I guess, actually did give us 4-arrow consolidation right here. Oh, thanks, Julian. Julian says there's some big sellers that hanging around 68.36, which would put us just below or around, oh, I guess this little low right here. I would think there'd be a lot more selling going on down here as well if prices start to trickle lower, which right now does not appear to be the case, but we will see. What happens as well when the market breaks out like this, actually it's probably most evident on the Eagle. When the market makes this strong breakout move, what's going to happen is the market is pretty much settled right now that it's in an uptrend. And buyers are waiting for a decent opportunity to buy in. And what they'll do is, well, they have different strategies, right? If they are used to trading the stock market, they're going to buy on the downtick. In other words, they're going to look for bearish bars here, and they're going to buy on the bearish bars. Other traders will be waiting for just a simple breakout. Other traders will just be hitting the buy market button. But when the market makes a strong rally like this, you can, anything resembling a pullback is usually excuse enough for traders to start buying. Now, if you're a small trader, you have to be a little bit more selective. You have to try to time your entry a little bit better because, of course, stop placement is going to be a big consideration for you. Getting in is the easy part, right? We can just hit the buy button, get us in, but where does our stop go? Well, ideally, way back here at the hard edge. But it will be much easier to buy the hard edge once the market gets a little bit closer. It's always a balancing act. Julian says more sellers at 42. It looks like we've engaged them, and now the market's back down here to the secondary resistance line. And as I mentioned, there will be traders looking for all kinds of excuses to get long. But the stop, it's not the direction I'm concerned about this morning, it's the stop. Where can I put my stop without getting into too much trouble? And while we're waiting for that, Keith has got a great question about the late filter entry signal on the Falcon. Keith asks, hey Eric, could you explain the late filter entry signal on the Falcon? I see it often. When should I look to take it? The late filter entry signal is technically a continuation signal, although sometimes it will develop At the same time, you get your trend change signal on the Falcon. The late filter entry signal occurs when the filter goes out of sync and comes back into sync. However, the trend line itself never changes color. Those are the two key components. It is a very strong signal. Typically, the late filter entry signals that develop early are stronger than the ones that develop later. Or if you're getting, 2 or 3 or 4 late filter entry signals, the first 2 are probably okay. The third one, I'm going to start to get a little suspicious, and the fourth one, I'll probably ignore entirely. You can see this morning we had several late filter entry signals, and that was probably due to the added volatility from the short trading day yesterday. So, here's a late filter entry signal on the open. Here's a late filter entry signal. Again, it's only like a minute apart, so these are essentially the same signal. Here is a late filter entry signal, and of course here is another trend change signal / late filter entry signal. I would consider all 4 of these valid, especially the ones that developed a little bit later. I'm never a fan of getting into the market super early. Let's see if we can find another one. Like I said, they do tend to develop once a trend is underway. This one developed also with the trend change. So they can develop early, but most times you're going to see them when the trend is already working. You're going to find as well that the late filter entry signal where the trend line goes very, very flat are going to be better signals. So here's one, the trend line going a little bit flatter. Actually, this one's almost textbook. So we have a trend change signals. Trend line changes color. The market goes up. Here's the push that changes the trend line color. Here's the counter push. And then here's the new with trend push. So everything is in sync. And the market goes up nicely. And then it hits a little bit of a sideways skid. Filter changes color, comes back into sync, trend line never changes color, and you get this very nice flat little trend line, and then the signal, and you can see a very good result from that. You're going to find that when the trend line goes very, very flat, you're going to end up with a decent late filter entry signal. I would also have considered this a late filter entry. Even though the trend line went out of sync, it only went out of sync for 1 bar. And it's probably because this bar went just a little bit too low. Just low enough to change that trend line color. Here's a good example of how you don't want to see too many late filter entry signals. So here's the first one. That's okay. Here's the second one. All right, but within the span of a dozen bars, we're getting 3 signals, 3 late filter entry signals. I would have questioned the third one. And I'm not just saying that in hindsight. You could have taken it. There was enough in here. You probably could have at least managed your trade a little bit. You can see it did hit the profit target and then started to reverse. So you could have gotten out of this trade with a break even. But this is not what you want to see. You don't want to see late filter entry, and then late filter entry. This is a strong signal. We're looking for the signal to print. We're looking for some follow through, right? And there's no follow through. Here's another one. So to answer your question, Keith, I take almost all of them, something like this being the exception. Because, like I say, we're expecting follow through from a late filter entry. So, here's a late filter entry. There's some follow through. Here's a late filter entry, here's a late filter entry, here's a late filter entry. There's very little follow through on each of those. Okay, one more. Here's a nice one. Again, note how flat the trend line went. Oh, no, sorry. Technically, this one went out of sync. But it is the same kind of idea. And I'll allow you to scroll back through your charts and find them. But yeah, they're strong signals. You can take them with a great deal of confidence. Okay, it looks like the seller is digging in a little bit now. We're getting some yellow bars cropping up. Maybe a top. Looks like the Raptor thinks it's a top. We've already produced a counter trend signal. The hard edge would be the target here. You know, the thing with the counter trend signals, it's a trade-off. I don't usually stay in risk percent mode for counter trend trades. I will click it and switch to manual mode. Maybe take a single contract. The nice thing is, well, you know where your stop should go. It should go above the high of the day. And the risk amount tends to be a little bit less. However, your probability, oh, excuse me, had a sneeze sneak up on me. Your probability is also a little bit less because it is counter trend. You're going to find, as I mentioned earlier, your number 2 signals are going to work a little bit better after a number 3. So we're going to see a hard edge bounce and then a possible failure. Oh, here we come back with yet another number 2 signal. So as far as the Raptor is concerned, things looking a little bit more bearish right now. But the immediate trend is up. So I'm not all that excited about getting short. Well, looks like we may get a little bit of a pullback now. The hawk giving us a first micro macro cross lower. The first micro macro cross signal, of course, very, very strong in the hawk. Once again, you got to take the context into consideration, but because the hawk is only looking for a scalp target, it's probably a doable trade. This is one of these situations, though, where for a couple of 3 ticks, you can take the trade on a push below the most recent low. So rather than enter on the hash mark, you could postpone your entry a little bit and just try to pick up some additional momentum. And there you go. So relatively easy counter trend move there. Now that we've encountered the hard edge of the first band here in the Raptor, we might get a little bit of a bullish push. Okay, that's actually turning out to be a very decent number 2 signal. We're certainly hit our first profit objective, and we're almost all the way back to the hard edge of the trading band. And there we go. So it did tail off enough to find the next profit target, or the ultimate profit target for that move, I guess. Now that we're back into the hard edge, we're going to look for a reaction. Okay, here comes that reaction that I'm looking for. Come on, where's my signal? Here, the eagle producing another buy signal. This would be another hard edge bounce. And are we going to get a second push entry opportunity on that one? Maybe. Okay, well, here the eagle is going to give us a second push. I'm waiting on, oh, there's the hard edge bounce on the raptor. Just as I was going to look away, there's the hard edge bounce coming. And are we going to get a second push opportunity on that one? Well, a very slight second push. Well, we should be all right here. What I was going to say is ideally I wanted to enter just above the high in that bar. I did enter on the high, but regardless, I would be long at this point. And the idea here is that because the highs are up here, I should have enough room that the market should at least trickle up and allow me my profit target before sellers start to become interested in trying to short this market again. Julian says big buyers coming in at 68.39. So, well, that's just around where my break even is. So that would be nice. We'll see if we can't get a few of them interested a little earlier. Well, we got tagged there a little bit premature. Getting a first micro macro cross on the Hawks, so there is another opportunity to get in. And we're going to produce a follow-up signal here on the Raptor as well. The Falcon trying to work a possible trend change. We don't have the warning dot just yet. Well, we're really kind of dragging our feet here now. All right, so here now we're coming back with a follow-up signal on the Raptor. The first micro macro cross underway, and there's the crossover buy. Now things are getting a little bit tricky because we're getting back near the highs. Oops, and the Raptor telling me, Eric, if you want to do your trade that way, you can't really afford it. So I might be on the sidelines here for a second. At least until I get a little bit more structure and I can maybe frame a tighter trade. All right, so a decent opportunity here on a second push. Still quite bullish, but we've lost some of that early momentum that we had. This may be a bigger top now. Here, the eagle showing it fairly plainly. This would be a very big test of the extreme. And if the market starts to fold over here, there's a good chance we're going to head lower, at least retest the low of the morning. Or, sorry, not the low of the morning, but the low of this recent little swing. The recent low, I guess. And as has been the tendency of late, the market does kind of slip into a bit of a sideways trading range. So we'll see if we get another failure here, another number 2 signal. There it is. I'm going to be inclined to try to get a hold of that. Maybe I'll try it on a limit. They're not going to come back and let me in. Nope. Missed my chance. But that was a good little trade, a good little opportunity. I was just a little bit slow getting there. And now we're back in the hard edge. So yeah, this is really starting to shape up like a sideways trading range. Well, I wonder, was that it? Was that the move of the day? All right, so we've definitely had a shift in bias here. Our tools turning over. We're getting sell signals on the Hawk, the Falcon, the Raptor still technically with trend. That would be an early cloud crossover. Here, the Eagle producing a rule of three signal, even though we only have two counter trend signals. And there is an opportunity for a second push to short here. Now, entry is your choice. You can either enter below the low of this bar, you can enter below this swing low. Chances are pretty good, though, if I get filled here, I would get filled a little bit lower as well. And what I'm looking for is a new trend to develop here, or possibly a new trend to develop. Julian says there's sellers at 68.33 and again at 26. Okay, well, let's hope so. I got short here at 68.26 quarter. Let's hope that there's some additional selling down there. That would be nice. Okay, they're trying to get lower. So the Hawk, of course, with a couple of signals. There we go. We're getting a little bit of follow through now. And it looks like we've made our way back to the low of the morning, where there's probably going to be, oh, no, sorry. That was one of the resistance lines. I got too many lines going on here. So we got some room here to get down to the low of the morning. Once we get through that resistance line, that would be my target. That would be my ultimate target. back down here to the primary resistance and the low of the day. Getting a little bit of a hiccup as we break through the bottom end of the trading range. Phil is asking how Julian is showing the buyers and the sellers. Phil asks, is that level 2 or level 3 data? Yes, I'm imagining Julian is following the level 2 data. If your data feed allows it, you can get a level 2 if you have level 2 data right there. Oh, I guess I should pull it up for those of you who don't know what it looks like. 1 second here. Okay, here's a NinjaTrader level 2. This is for the NASDAQ. I actually like the way NinjaTrader does their level 2. They have the little graph there, which is kind of fun. The idea is that this just allows you to see how the buyers and sellers are stacked up. Most of the time, you're going to see that they're fairly even, and at what price they're looking to buy and sell. So there you go. There's level 2 data. It can be helpful. It's not a magic bullet. As with all things trading related, you want to make sure that it helps you make a trading decision. Right? You don't need more information. You'll never have all the information. Let's put it that way. You can add indicators until you can't hardly make out the price chart. You will never have all the information on your chart. What you need is you need the ability to make a trading decision. Now, speaking of that, we do have a very early cloud crossover forming here on the Eagle or the Raptor. It's not going to produce the #1 signal because the clouds are not fully crossed yet. However, this signal right here, this guy, could be interpreted as an early cloud crossover because the clouds are almost all crossed and we've got a little bit of a pullback. And those are the characteristics behind the #1 signal, of course. Nurali is asking, can you show me the support and resistance line setup? Because mine is different with the same 8 tick. Okay, it's probably the data series. So what you're going to do is right click on your chart and go here to your data series. You need at least 10 days data loaded, but mine is set on default 24/5. Yours might be set on 24/7. There's a few hours pre-market on Sunday morning, and nobody trades it. I'm not even sure, well, hardly anybody trades it, but NinjaTrader does give you the option. What you want to do is you want to go to default 24/5. So that's just going to incorporate the data of the 5 normal working days. And that should get it in sync. You can also, providing you're not in a trade, you can also reload your data, or even just refresh the chart. But make sure you're not in a trade when you do that. All right, we're moving a little bit lower here. Again, I'm going to force this trade to break even now. It's just everything is so slow today. We've had a little bit of a breakout here. I don't want to see a really big reaction and then force me out of my trade. Elmer is asking, can you show the level 2 again? Yes, I can. So you just go here to your chart, new level 2. That's going to bring up a screen like this. And then you can right click and you can add your market. Now, you know, folks, in all honesty, I hesitate to show you some of these things because I know a lot of you, and I do mean a lot of you, are going to run down this rabbit hole. So, like I said, it can be very helpful, but it's, you know, it's not the be all end all in trading. Again, if it helps you make a decision, keep it. If it adds to confusion, get rid of it. And I got to do something with my stops here because I don't want to give up all that open profit. There we go. There. Julian says, don't go down the rabbit hole. Yeah, Elmer says, no danger of that. I do not seem to have it. A lot of you, you have to subscribe to level 2 data to get that information. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It can be helpful. The danger, like I said, is that you just start incorporating another thing into your trading. Come on, get down there, you stinkers. They're just kind of hovering here now. The nice thing about the level 2 data is sometimes you can see the bias, which way the market might be leaning. But you can see that on the price chart as well. Right? You can see the market, it no longer can go higher. It starts to reverse. It can no longer go higher. So which way is it going to go? Well, it's very likely going to go lower. Trading is very much about probabilities. You're always, you know, trying to balance one off against the other. Wow, that actually had a lot more follow through to it than I initially expected. We've hit the high probability profit objective now, but look at them go. They've kind of come unstuck, and we did retrace all the way here to the low of the day, made our way back to where we started. So in spite of that strong rally out of the gate, the market has taken it all back, plus a couple of ticks. you can see the number one signal here actually producing after the clouds fully crossed. This was the early number one signal that I pointed out. Either way, it looks like we would have made our profit objective easily enough. And now we're kind of on hold again. Back to the hard edge, so we would expect a little bit of maybe a bearish reaction once we get here. The Falcon and the Hawk already turning bullish, so just kind of suggesting we are in that sideways mode or a bigger sideways mode. Well, the hawk signal following through enough to find its profit target. The Falcon also kind of trickling up there a little. Yep, Scott says moved right to the support level and turned up. Scott's referring now to the primary resistance line, that blue line right there. Even though I developed the lines, I shouldn't be surprised they work as well as they do, but sometimes it still amazes me how well the market will respect them. Now that we're on the other end of this resistance line, however, we're going to look a little bit more bullish. This one also a early number one signal to the long side. Well, I almost think we might be bouncing around here a little bit. Julian says if it turns into a profit-taking day, my downside target 67.22. That would put us. That's a huge target, Julian. That's like a multi-day target, way down there. Not sure we're going to see that much today, but I do think maybe the trend shifting somewhat. Not sure we're going to get another signal here this morning. That's all right. Did okay. Yeah, we're just kind of drifting now. Yeah, back and forth. I think we've lost our early momentum. This is going to be the last push lower, I think, by the sellers, and we may end up seeing another reverse and move higher. Why do I say that, you say? Well, the market does have a tendency to do things in pairs, right? So here was a move up, here was the follow-up move higher. That's where the market failed. Here's the move down. This might now be the follow-up move lower, and if that fails, then the market's going to try to reverse the other way. You can also look at the market doing things in threes if you want to be a little bit more precise. You can say, okay, well, this was move one, this was move two, this was move three. This is move one, this is move two, this is move three. The same idea, just a different way of looking at it. And the market will make those 2 or 3 attempts, and then it's going to say, okay, enough of that. Let's try the other way. Oh, look at that. We're getting another cloud crossover. The Eagle doing a green bar sell off the hard edge, which is actually fairly bearish. This would be the kind of trade, if you're going to take it, you're going to look to cover before we get too close to these lows in case this is actually the last leg of the move. So you could set up the trade reasonably tight. I wouldn't necessarily go in with 2 contracts. At this point, I would probably consider bringing the stops in maybe above the high of this little bar here, or to a break even, in case this is a test of the extreme and the market reverses and heads higher. The Raptor also producing that signal approximately the same time. Here, the number one signal. The Raptor target a little bit easier to get to. Oh, looks like we just encountered the profit order or the profit target. Not a bad start to the week, however. All right, boys and girls, I think we're going to button up the room here for the morning. I will see you again tomorrow morning. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.